Hello, everyone. So the time flies. Just give me some moment. Welcome you all to come to this youth roundtable section, and I am the moderator of this section, and I'm Silu Zhang from China Youth Climate Action Network. Here's a brief introduction of this session. This session will last from now, 4 p.m. to about 5:20. So please be prepared for the coming things. I think it will be so interesting. So some notes for the audience as following. First of all, this session is a 55 minutes roundtable discussion, followed by a 15 minutes Q&A section. And please type your questions in the chat box anytime. The moderator, which is me, will raise the questions to speakers in the Q&A section. So we will first go to the brief overview of speakers' experience, and then we will have some discussion around these speakers, and then I will open the Q&A section to you all. So let's go. So let me introduce the guest speakers. The first one is Miss Noor from. She will share something about the SEAME OTAD and their work. Yeah. And then we will have Mr. Pietro, and he will share something about the clean energy project, CO2 to fuel. And then we have Lin Wu. I think the topic will be about experience in proposing and readapting abandoned built farms in rural China. And last but not least, we will have Chu Wei Chao. I think she will share something about the experience in promoting ESD in Ireland and building partnership with multi-stakeholders. So let's give the round applause to welcome Ms. Noor.
Hello. Okay, I am Nur Afiqa Amani from Criminal Vocational College, Sabah, Malaysia, and I am a student and currently taking a diploma in culinary art. Okay, since 2021, I have led several initiatives that have successfully attracted teenagers, not only my friends, but younger than me, who are 16 to 17 years old, to participate in various programs, including radio drama competition, international exchange, and roundtable that held virtually. We participate in a 3-month exchange program with several schools in Southeast Asia under SEMIOTEP. Okay, during the class exchange program, we were divided into a several group and will be assigned a teacher from several countries in Southeast Asia. My group were educated by teachers from Cambodia. She taught us about agriculture. So as a leader, I admit that there were some challenges that my group members and I had to overcome during the class exchange program, such as the time difference between Cambodia and Malaysia, the difficulty in connecting with the teachers who teach us, and so on. However, we managed to overcome every problem successfully. Then, as there were ambassador, my peers and I voiced our concern and our proposed solution in a series of roundtables that hosted by Dear World, a UK-based youth leadership association that works to empower young people to be change maker. Among the topics we discussed are climate change, health education, women's rights, mental rights, and more. I believe this virtual approach can be one of the platforms to improve the progress of rural development. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Nurul. And I think audience must have some questions for you, and we will discuss later. So let's welcome the next one, Mr. Pietro.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pietro Poipat, or Anthony. I'm an environmental activist and the presenter of CO2 to fuel technology. And CO2 to fuel technology is a carbon conversion technology, one that converts carbon dioxide energy into hydrogen energy without the use of electricity derived from energy sources related or emitting carbon emissions. To help reduce and balance carbon emissions and turn captured carbon into pure green energy for various uses. Mostly my work and those I've been involved with has been about raising awareness and finding solutions to combat climate change. But these past few years in particular, I've been focusing on strengthening beliefs and mindset about the climate through education and community development, particularly in the provinces from northern Thailand. Our project has included particularly education of youth on environmental awareness, as well as disaster preparedness, with the help of professionals from hospitals to educate students on how to cope with disasters during simulations or drill. And through this, it will help to strengthen students' belief in and knowledge on climate crisis as well as disaster preparedness. And it couldn't have been done without the support, of course, the hospitals and various provincial and local governments. And support is especially important to communities in the rural areas of Thailand, since cultural art and tradition is deeply important to Thailand, and it will be lost if the communities that they originated from continually suffers from poverty. And it's because of this that myself and others have worked with and promoted the communities in the province of Chiang Rai, specifically in the Chiang Khong district, as well as others, in the efforts of helping the people, particularly the elderly of the community, out of poverty and creating a platform where more people can know about them. In this point in our project, we have been working with companies and agencies, and I've even received attention from the Thai government and the Prime Minister of Thailand. Well, from my experience through all of this, I believe that the solution to our climate crisis is really involved with the development of education and sustainability of the people. And it can only happen with the support of not only the people and individuals, as I mentioned, with the community development and community support, but also the government to help support and make policies to create real change. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pietro. Actually, I'm interested. I'm interested in the technology you just mentioned, that how to turn CO2 to fuel. I think we can talk it later more, and how to develop how to raise the awareness of the people from the community is also very important. And I think that is also the other guest speakers, they have their own experience that can bring here today. So let's welcome the next one, Ling Lu.
Hey everyone. So my name's Lin Lu or Alicia. So I'm now an independent architect and also a lecturer at Wenzhou Qin University in China. And today I'll share about like sustainable road development from an architectural perspective, with my kind of particular interest in vernacular architecture. So I come back to China at the end of 2019, kind of just before COVID. And it's been kind of 10 something years since I last lived in my country. But within this past 10 years, China has gone through kind of tremendous amount of development, especially with the rate of urbanization, modernization, etc. And of course, this causes a huge amount of transitions in rural places as well. However, I personally believe that no matter whichever society in the world, the core of its culture kind of always lies in the countryside, where there's different geographic climatic conditions, ecosystems, and also leading to different methods of farming, building houses, communications, and habitations, as we discussed earlier today as well. So with this curiosity and kind of reverse culture shock of China for me, I moved myself to the countryside, and also maybe because this is also because my previous years living in New Zealand and Norway, where I learned a lot about the integration of urban-rural studies in architecture schools and practices. So I visited a lot of different rural vernacular houses in Southwest China. And then I finally established, after some projects and practices, I established my studio in Dali, Yunnan. And throughout this kind of last 3 years, I discovered that Chinese young people today, they are rushing into the cities and leaving a lot of things behind in the rural villages. In particular, lots of traditional vernacular houses are abandoned. And sadly, those are the most eco-friendly types of construction for that certain place, because of the use of locally sourced materials, kind of wood, timber, like earth even, that is specific to the place, as well as techniques. And similarly, old people kind of are left alone in the countryside with generations of this wisdom of the construction and maintenance of these vernacular houses. As with the construction of my studio, it's actually still going on now. I decided to learn how to build a house with local carpenters, masons, and smiths from the village. But at the same time, as an architect, I realized there are many more important social layers as well in reactivating these abandoned forms, built forms, apart from its physical kind of structures. Because even old houses look young again, nobody might need them still. So this restoration could seem kind of temporary, and then it will decay again. So I hope later with the discussion, I can share more about my reflection around reuse and recycle from a design perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Linglu. I think that's interesting that you provide a new aspect from architect, and also mention the linkage between the village and the cities. And I think we can have more discussion on this area later. And last but not least, let's welcome Qiu Huiqiao, and she's CEO from Wudao Wushe Education for Sustainable Development.
Thank you, Zilu. I started Wudao Wushe Education for Sustainable Development in Hainan Island, which is also my hometown, in 2020, after working in the sustainable development areas in West and South Africa and the rural region for 6 years. And it's important to, Wudao Wushe literally means learning about my home in English. So it's important to see, what is in your home. So the education for sustainable development in an island environment usually requires the education to adapt to the vulnerabilities and also the features of the island, such as its climate sensitivity, oceanic environment, and also the marine biodiversity. And it is important to have a look on the resources in the region. What are the individual or organizational actors working for sustainable development issues? And also what are the natural and the cultural resources that we can harness for education for sustainable development? And also, like, based on this resource mapping, we have tried to build up partnership with local communities, NGOs, social enterprises, and also the public schools, mostly at local level. And through the co-creation workshops and also the project-based learning or the service learning program, the youth from the schools are able to learn and also to serve in the rural communities, and the local people and the sustainable practitioners from civil society and the private sectors have become the teachers for the high school students, and they can deliver very diverse perspective and also very useful skills too. And it's also important to see geographically where Hainan is. You know, Hainan Island in China is like in the very south of China, and it's also special for its adjacency to the Southeast Asian region and its similarities to the area in terms of its coastal surroundings. And I know that countries such as Philippines is very similar to Hainan in terms of its weather. We usually have a lot of typhoons. Yeah, and we co-initiated the Sustainable Life Youth Network in Asia, a network focusing on engaging youth in sustainable development in the community level and also sustainable life through partnership with Sources for Actions from China, PRM from Philippines, and also the TVS from Thailand. And in that way, we are able to organize online dialogues to link the youth from rural communities in Hainan with other youth practitioners from Southeastern Asia to share the experience and challenges they're facing. That's all my sharing.
Hey, Chiu, I just found that, wait a minute. I just found that what Chiu just mentioned is a little bit similar to what Ms. Nur is mentioned. That I think maybe that's a little. I'm not sure if I'm right, but I found that both of you are trying to engage young people from educator perspective. Rather than Mr. Pietro is more from an activist, and Lin Lu is more an architect. So I am interested in both of you, Chiu and Miss Nur, that from both of you, from your experience, from your side, that what is the biggest challenge in engaging youth to take actions for sustainable rural development? I mean, from your perspective. This is for, especially for Ms. Nur and Ms. Chiu. So,
based on my experience, one of the challenge is to open the eyes of the youth to see the problems happening around them. The average youth is always indifferent and take things for granted without knowing their future consequences. In addition, there is also a lack of allowing the youth to collaborate with the superiors to develop and take into account the suggestions given by them. Then, due to the culture that has been instilled for a long time, academic performance need to be prioritized based on exam result only. This matter has with the spirit of local youth to be consistent in forming a new change policy to the global or a specific country. As we know, it is the thinking of these young people that can make a big impact in solving a problem and making a good change. The world need a youth power.
So if Nur is done with her answer, then I will also talk about my experience. And in my experience, youth is still a group of complexity, and they have shown varying preference based on where they are, their age, and also their access to different type of information sources. If we take the high school youth in Hainan, for example, in Hainan, most of the high school students, they are under a great pressure of the schoolworks. And also, as we know, the pandemic might have very substantial influence on their learning continuity, which causes even more pressure of them to get high score in the school. In that case, I found them have little interest in the matters out of the classes. And also in my interaction with the youth, I also found that they have little knowledge and also the interest in the public issues, not to mention the sustainable rural development in general. And on one hand, I just found them, they hardly read newspaper or access information about what is going on in the society at schools. And probably it is because the school only provided them with very limited access to social news, and also because of the political propaganda in the Chinese public schools. They can't really have the opportunity to do the critical thinking most of the time. Yeah, and on another hand, during the weekend, they spend so much time on TikTok, and they can be easily attracted by the content, more amusing and funny on TikTok or other, streamline media platforms, which does not require them to really think more. And I think, the biggest challenge will be, the behaviors shaped at this key stage of the youth. And this will also lead to very much challenges for us to engage them for sustainable rural development now and also in the future. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. While Chiu share more about the high school young people, and I would like to invite Miss Lin Lu
抗原的话，根本也不知道自己是不是羊。那非常特。
to share something. I found that you are a lecturer from a university, so as you can you already talk some young people from university, or you have some project with them or anything. So I'm interested in what's your experience while you talk or communicate with the young people from the university, and what's their ideas about rural development, and how is their ideas towards this topic, and how you engage them into rural development.
Thank you. Yeah, I completely agree with what Jill shared earlier, especially I guess young people in Asia, we're still very much influenced by Confucianism, like hardworking culture, and it's really hard to kind of foster creative thinking and critical thinking, as we mentioned. So I've been teaching at university, teaching architecture for 2 years now, and what I find is it's very, like, I think, like, young people, they have the energy inside, and then you have to kind of raise their curiosity in a way to get them actively doing something. So I think actually a lot of offline kind of being on site is very important. So for some of the courses I am running, I'm trying to run a wood course, a design studio. So I believe it's very interesting for young people to make things by hand, and then to actually touch the soil, especially in rural settings, and then try to talk with the carpenters in the village to like how they were building houses, because in China, rural settings, I believe there are still carpenters, for example, in at least in Yunnan, because it's quite remote. There are still like carpenters that are aged, I don't know, 60s, 50, 60-year-old. They still building things in their traditional way. And I believe a lot of places in Southeast Asia as well. So it's very important to get young people engaged and actually like doing the things, get their hands dirty, and then to explore. And then for what I had with my students, they actually quite enjoy that when they actually physically engage with their smell, with their touch of the things, of the material. So I think connecting kind of tangible and intangible things are quite kind of crucial for young youth today. And I think it's like most of my students, they grew up not in the village, from the, like myself as well. I was born in a big city, but I'm super interested in rural development because of the knowledge that is in the rural area, and then the dialogue between kind of the old and new, the rural and the urban, the organic and the industrialized is always kind of, they shouldn't be dichotomies. They should be kind of acknowledge, if we could acknowledge both sides, and if we could get them to work together, I think that is a very kind of, that could become a very powerful thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Lin. What Ms. Lin mentioned, I learned a lot from Ms. Lin, that you mentioned the linkage between the young people and the old people, the linkage between the village and the cities, and I think that's important. And also Ms. Noor, she also mentioned that the cross-culture communication is important to get the young people global. So we'll talk about that later. And I want to pass the microphone, if I have one, to the youngest guest speaker among us, I guess. I guess he's the youngest, Mr. Pietro. I mean, from your respect, how you get your peer into rural development issue, and what you find that it's efficient, and what you find that's difficult. I mean, what's your experience to gauge your peer into this topic?
Well, I've worked with schools in like that are really like far away from urban areas, and like there's usually like not really a night and day difference, but like say like a school in like not really completely in the urban area, but like more further in that. So usually detached or just completely uninterested in certain topics like this, just as Ms. Lin or Ms. Xiu mentioned. Usually people my age are not really interested in this kind of thing. And then when you compare it to maybe a school in a more rural area, it's like for some reason there's usually a lot more interest in that. Maybe due to the fact that in rural areas, kids, their parents are farmers themselves, or do jobs that are related to agriculture. So it's something that's closer to them. But when it's maybe someone from an urban area, it's like it's seemingly something distant from them. And when you curate these kind of activities, you don't want to, and having students do them, you don't really want to come off as you're trying to force them to do it, right? So like the difficult part is trying to make it enjoyable for them. I think that's the most important, because like I've done one of the ones I think was the most memorable for me was doing drills or disaster simulations with the help of professionals from hospitals, and that like and because it was such a physical thing, and it's like it involves like a knowledge how to cope with particularly the disaster simulation of a flooding or tsunami. It's such a physical thing that once you get involved with it and you kind of taken by it, it becomes something enjoyable. And I found that the students my age who were during that program was really enjoying it. So yeah, I think enjoyability is the most important thing, because as I said, you don't want to force. For people my age, they don't like being forced to do things that they might not be interested in. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Piachon. I found that Mr. Piachon and Ms. Lin Lu also mentioned that how to engage the young people in a specific scenario, bring to the specific community to use the wood to really to be a covenant, to use the wood. And Mr. Piatron just mentioned that to ask the doctor and nurse to come here to tell them the real experience, that to let the young people to feel that's real, that's useful, that's not fake, that's not someone who taught me, but let me to experience that knowledge. And I realized that is some common experience, even though we are from different area, different region, but this is some common knowledge for us. So I'm also interested, I want to ask Ms. Nur, from your experience, from your project, you just mentioned that you try to engage the young people in policy making process. So what's your experience that can really bring the young people to really engage in this process? What is your successful and unsuccessful experience? Ms. Noor, can you share some experience or insights with us?
I got experience. I joined this online platform in 2021. I joined the competition that called a radio drama. At first, my friends refused to join with me because they think that is a waste of time. We can win, but then we win the competition, and that made my friend realize that we have the opportunity to win at the global competition. So more of my friends are really attracted to join the competition. My young people than me. So I think that is my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. That's interesting. That's interesting that you mentioned the competition, because I also found that the young people really like competition. Maybe at first they are not interested, but when you put them in a competition, they will think, I want to win, and they will really engage into that. So thank you for your sharing. So I hope also have the next questions, that is for Mr. Biachung, that given the current environmental and climate crisis, there is an urgent need of innovative solutions in tackling with sustainability challenges. So what do you think are the key issues that young people should consider in the process of design, apply, and assessing new technologies? So that's something about the technology questions that I really want to ask at the beginning.
I guess one thing I can advise is since my project for like the past few years has been so community related and like more about the areas themselves, I think that and I consider this with my own project as well, is that what environmental impact, just like not even just like even like on a smaller scale, what will it have? You know, you have to take that into consideration from everything like where it's placed, what are the side effects of it, and that should be in especially if your technology is designed to mostly like help people's living conditions as like mine. That's the goal of CO2 to field. We're trying to as well as change carbon dioxide energy into hydrogen for potential use. We're also trying to reduce carbon dioxide and balance it out. And yeah, that's you really got to be cautious about it. That's the only advice I can give.
Thank you. So I also have I also have another questions that's from organizer, that is to Ms. Ling Lu. The questions goes to in recent years, cultural preservation has become a prevalent topic in discussions around sustainability. So could you share with us the mindset that everyone can learn behind the ecological approach of your architecture design?
Sure. So I can talk about a few points. Maybe firstly, what I mentioned earlier, I believe like kind of during a designer process, the relation to the existing are kind of extremely important. And that is to deal with, we talk about like before urbanity exists, everywhere was rural. So how do you relate the new to the existing, to the old, and then how do you relate rural to what's going on in the city? Also, how do you relate kind of 100-year-old craftsmanship to a new machine-made object? So these are like constant questions to think about, and again, they shouldn't be dichotomies. They should kind of work in favor of each other. It's like designing is always kind of adding. For me, is never getting something completely new and dropped into this new place, but it's always to observe what is already there, and then the design is kind of a reaction to the existing, to the context. And secondly, I also believe design should be almost like Chinese acupuncture, especially dealing with fragile village situations, meaning maximizing the structures of the old with minimal actions, but very specific interventions is very crucial. Otherwise, we are going to kind of destroy completely the old and then replace it, or it's just an imitation of the old. So, for example, a lot of spatial arrangements in traditional Chinese houses, they were based on kind of old ways of living without contemporary facilities. Many old village houses, they don't have toilet, and then the kitchen is kind of outside, and then or on the side house, so you always have to get out, get a jacket today. And then as modern people, we don't really want that. So these inconveniences will cause a lot of Chinese villagers today, and then they would rather demolish the entire old courtyard that is like beautiful, and then rebuild from zero with like much bigger concrete houses. However, I believe if we could think of a formula or kind of a series of principles that could keep these best qualities that a lot of us could see in old houses, and adding contemporary elements as kind of like acupuncture, doing acupuncture inside the house. We could fulfill these kind of needs instead of having to take down everything. So we have a win-win situation between preservation and innovation. For example, it could be inserting like a small new structure where the old structure is not working. It could be introducing a new drainage system, a water system if the old system is decaying, or designing a new accessible kind of flat roof if part of the angled roof, which needs maintenance, is probably leaking. So these new design as additions or extensions of the old is almost like a young person or like a visitor. When it comes to a local's house, he or she is not trying to invade the owner's house, but trying to live with the local and be part of his home. And then lastly, I think what we mentioned earlier as well, I wanted to add is like, I believe these kind of revitalizing rural places is not just about houses, not just about tangible structures, but what's going on in rural places is extremely important, like mentioned by Mr. Pia Chun earlier. Like, I think it has to be something fun going on. It has to be public events or community gatherings, a craft workshop, or like a place where old people and young people could stay together, a place locals and visitors and immigrants could all meet, and these kind of inserting contemporary programs in rural settings are kind of important. Even, I don't know, young people today, they like music, they like to make things by hand, some of them, and then they like to read. So all of these programs can be kind of inserted into rural places in a decentralized way, I believe. Yeah, that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. That's interesting that all of the speakers mentioned the public area, or the public society, the common park that we share, not just about myself, but also about ourselves or our society, how we gather people together in the community, or how to engage young people into the public space to do more. When we talk about the public, it's not just the on the community level, maybe the place we are living and the neighborhood, the street that we walk. When we go to the global level, that we can think more. For me, it's especially we talk about. I always talk about with my colleague or partners about how to understand global citizenship and how can we engage young people in the global society. So the next two questions is also it's not the next two questions. Sorry, that the next two questions is one is for Ms. Nur, and the next one is for Chiu. The questions for Ms. Nur is that we are aware that young people, especially those from disadvantaged groups, are facing barriers in participating in the development agenda. What role can online platforms in improving this situation, and how can young people use them in a safe and critical way?
Okay. After the pandemic, the use of technology is increased. People have started using several applications to connect virtually, such as Telegram, Zoom Meeting, and Google Meet. The appearance of this application is a new revelation in improving academic standards. through various programs that are organized virtually. This is able to further improve the learning experience of students, especially those who live in a rural area. Before the pandemic, learning opportunities like this were very limited. Therefore, this is considered as a golden opportunity for students to gain more knowledge. Based on my experience while following the class exchange under Tech with Cambodia and the second class with Korea, my friends and I can add more knowledge. We can get to know their culture, the way they deal with a problem. For example, in Korea, they are more organized in handling waste than in Malaysia. This can open the eyes of the youth to emulate the way of neighboring countries in dealing with the issues of unorganized garbage disposal. This method not only has a positive impact on students, but also on the country. Therefore, through this class exchange program, students can also get to know and learn the language of a country. This will further strengthen the relationship and increase contact. Students who are in rural area will not be left behind in enriching their learning. The teacher also have a role to monitor the student to ensure the safety of the student during the virtual learning process. With the basic needs such as internet and device that any school can provide, students can have meaningful interaction with any of the teachers, experts, and peers. This platform can open a bright opportunity of students to access education around the world, anytime and anywhere, regardless of the student geographic position, background, and socioeconomic condition. Because this virtual education is at a low and almost zero cost. In addition, this project is able to address the loss of learning resulting from the widely pandemic shutdown that caused the knowledge gap of students to be blocked. Through this platform, we successfully remove the barriers for students to get learning around the world. Youth can also develop their ideas through this virtual platform. For example, me and some of my friends have participated in a series of a roundtable that hosted by their world. During the program, we will give each other suggestions for improvement about the problem that often occur in our respective community. Through a program like this, youth can activate their mind and generate new ideas that can be used as corrective measure. This virtual platform is not only able to improve person learning level, but is also able to inject enthusiasm in youth to help improve the standard of their own community. As a student myself, I really hope that more young people take advantage of this technology trend for the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Noor, that you bring up a very important issue that is about social justice. How can we use technology to get more students and young people in rural place that they less access to the latest information, the latest solutions. So when we are thinking or talking about the rural development, we cannot avoid to discuss about the social justice and how can we, by our efforts to try to bridge the gap between the village development and the urban development. And I also see that Ms. Chiu just raised a question that asks you to share the platform with us. You just mentioned some platform, so we can talk about later. And also, next question is for Chiu. As what we learned from UNESCO's global report on the future of education, partnership and cooperation are essential in promoting a sustainable future for all. So from your point of view, are any effective approaches that young people can contribute to global solidarity?
Thank you. Actually, we talk about global society, global citizen, and also global solidarity just now. And for me, there's still macro narrative, which most of the time is not coming from our life or our own experience. And if we want to effectively engage youth for global solidarity, it's important to let them have the ownership of the initiative and also promote the issues based on their needs, their experience, and also their interest in life. And I think I can share some of the experience of Sustainable Life Youth Network in Asia as an example. In this network, youth from China, Thailand, and also the Philippines, even though we share very common elements, we are kind of like in a very, very different situation. And we found out, sharing the stories from the personal level, it's a very, very good way to build the trust at the very first place, and also to see each other more like a friend or a partner instead of colleagues or people who only do things together. I think in this way, we can really build a genuine connections with each other rather than, we want to work together for some public issues. So building the relationship is like the first step. And then from the story sharing, and also we have a regular discussion every month, we identify together some of the topics we are interested in and our different needs. And for example, from the Thailand's perspective, we just found the friends from the Thailand, they would like to exchange more on the mechanism and also the policy practices in the other two countries that facilitate youth returning home in terms of the community supported agriculture and also social enterprise. Because those concepts of the CSA or the social enterprise, they are still very new in Thailand, and also more efforts supporting the CSA and also the social enterprise, they come from the very grassroots level. And in China, we're kind of like the different. We use more top to bottom approach, and we have this strategic plan for rural revitalization and also other policies that promote the rural development. And we have also a lot of practitioners and the regional networks on the community supported agriculture. In Philippines, there are also very much, successful CSA practices. So in this way, we just found that the China and the Philippines experience can actually provide the Thailand friends with insights for the policy advocacy for rural development based on the country's specific needs. So in this way, it's kind of like the process. We identify the interests or the topics together, and we find out the resources within this region, and we see how we can harness all these resources to build a dialogue between the countries. So based on needs, the Thailand, China, and Philippines, we try to introduce the practitioners in our own country, so we can have a lot of internal learning and also the public sharing among the countries. And in that way, youth from a certain country can benefit from the regional resources. So far, we are still propelling the regional learning on certain sustainability issues, regardless of the language barriers for dialogue for now. And it can also be seen that we have already built up a very much mutually supportive and the trustworthy relationship among the countries and also the youth. And we're still very looking forward to more learning in the future. So I just talk about an example of how global solidarity can be built, and it really requires us to, go back to the original, to the relationship building among the persons, and also we need to have a process of co-creation to see the problems together, to use our resources together. And for now, there are still some challenges in this kind of, global solidarity building. For example, there is also a challenge in the fundraising for such kind of, youth actions for rural community development domestically and also internationally, especially when the global economy shrinks at the moment. Yeah, so, but we're still working on that. That's all.
Thank you. Chu just mentioned the real issue that how to get fund. Yeah, and I think the discussion on how to get how to build a global society, how to be a active citizen, a global citizen, how to build up the global citizenship for the next generation is always the topic that we are concerned. And especially in the circumstance, I think that just my own idea that the global society goes to more conservative. So in such a circumstance, how can we promote or to make more people to believe, or they really believe that it's still important that we should get together rather than I just protect my own area. And she also mentioned a very important issue that how to get the young people when we try to promote a policy, how to make the young people think that they are in a dominant rights, they have the dominant rights, they can change. That I think that's also important. So before I close this section, also have last questions for you all. That would you to you all, that would you like to share your expectations for youth-led actions in the future? What's your expectations and what you think that is important for the young people to get them to do more, and what you can do or what your organization can do to get them engaged in these issues? So last questions for you all.
I expect that more schools open the opportunity for students to participate in any program virtually to help improve students' self-confidence and communication skills. Small steps like this can have a huge positive impact in the future.
I can share as well. Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, I totally agree with earlier what Ms. Cho mentioned, like the bottom-up action. I think should be generated more often from youth, especially a lot of development in China is done in the top-down way. So I think how to get youth together to have more youth and the locals and in the rural area to get involved in more bottom-up actions. And also, I think that the exploration of kind of an authentic rural identity is very important in terms of helping young people to understand their own identity as well. I had my identity crisis when I still have maybe, but I think as I mentioned earlier, I think every country's identity, a big portion of its identity lies in the countryside. That's what makes us different in a way. In addition, I think kind of collaborations between different professions among young leaders are also important, so that we're not just talking within our little perspective, but we can, it's kind of what it's great what's happening in these 2 days. Yeah, that's from me. Thank you.
I think I will take the next. From what I can see among all the social issues, the sustainable development for rural areas, it's still marginal among all the issues. While the rural population actually accounts for the 42.5% of the world total population, and the rural areas can become even more vulnerable under the public health crisis and other social crises, and the lack of proper health care and the lack of the access to quality education, gender inequality, and also the environmental pollution under the urbanization transition, they are still the pressing issues in the rural areas, and they are also the sufferer of the urbanization. So in this kind of situation, I found that some trained and experienced youth in rural areas are still scarce. And in this case, rural development absolutely requires more attention and the contribution from the youth-led actions. And therefore, I would like to call for more youth-led actions to make the rural development part of your agenda, and because that is very important for the whole world's sustainable development. And from my organization's perspective, I think we'll keep on linking the youth from the urban areas to the local communities in the rural areas, to make them see the needs of the rural areas and try to take actions to promote, the sustainable development of the rural areas. And at the same time, we were also working on the exchange of the youth, China and the Southeast Asian countries. So in that way, the experience can be shared regionally, and also they can transfer the experience into their action scenario. And I think that is what we're going to do.
I feel like my point of view is kind of biased because I'm someone from most of my school life I spent in schools in rural areas, very far away from the urban areas, and I kind of have a bias in a way to see things like we do need support and that. So I feel like I still want to see more and hear more from youth, as more than I do now, because like I want to keep doing projects where I'm able to have people who professionals or like people in their field be able to come and educate students, and then like be able to hear the reciprocation from the students. I want to hear more from students, because I think I still want to see both sides, both urban areas and both rural areas. So I feel like I still have more to learn about education in rural Thailand in general.
I think even though you talk about you talk a lot about your point of view, might not be so may have some bias, or you cannot provide so many opinions. But for me, I think you just raise a very important voice from you, that you want to listen to more voice opinions from young people. And I think that is what young people like us, like all of us, that really want to access to more people around the world, to really learn another community from other people, from the people live in that community. Therefore, what Ms. Nur Chiu just mentioned, to build up the platform for all is important. So thank you all. And we also have some questions from the audience, and the audience give you, each of you, a question. That's good. The first is for Ms. Chiu. The audience wants to know, what efforts do you think can be done to ensure mutual understanding between young people from the outside and local rural communities?
Okay, thanks, Chanke, for this question. Actually, in my experience, it's important to have some learning process, not only in terms of the cognitive change, but also the emotionally perspective. For example, in my project-based learning program, the students may have a tour in the village site, and also they may find some problems. They think it's problems. For example, in the last year, we took students to fishery island in the south of Hainan, and the students, they found that the people who are eating the areca nuts, they spit the juice to the floor, and they think these are very uncivilized. And they told me that, I have found the behaviors of the local people here, they are not very civilized. So I started to throw some questions to let them find out. For example, I asked them like, when did the local people start eating these areca nuts? And also, what is the change of the village on this island? For example, the road and the landscape, and also the industry here. And then after 2 days, the students, they found out themselves that in the past, the road on the island, they are actually made from earth and also the soil, and they are not made from the cement. And so it's not really, it will not really cause the hygiene issues if they spit on the soil, because the local people consider the areca nuts as part of the nature, and spitting the nuts juice to the ground is not actually an unhygiene or uncivilized behavior in their perspective. And when the students found out that, they start to change their mindset to consider such kind of behavior uncivilized. Instead, they think it as something cultural, and also a locally built or locally shaped behaviors. So this process of learning actually give the students the way of the critical thinking, and they start to have the understanding of the local people. And apart from that, we also have some cultural experience projects within the program. For example, we let the students to learn how to wave from the local ladies, and they are very experienced in using the coconut leaves to wave the very beautiful and also eco-friendly hats. So when the students learn from the local people, they start to have the conversation, and they learn the handicraft skills from the local people. And this is how they actually build more understanding about the local communities and learn the history of their experience, and also the community's cultural practices. Yeah, so these are some of the examples that I used in my program. Yeah, I hope my answer will help you.
You just mentioned a specific experience about how to get students to learn the local knowledge from the community. And as an educator, how to try to inspire students to think about why the local people have this behavior, have this thoughts. And this sharing links to the next questions also from the audience. This question is to Ms. Ling Lu, that cultural preservation is important, but often neglected. So this audience would like to know more about your work. So if you want to share anything about cultural preservation, that is good.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I can also drop a link later. But I studied and worked a bit in Norway, as I mentioned briefly earlier. I kind of grew up in more rural settings, I guess, although I was born in Tianjin, like a very industrialized city setting. But I looked into a lot of things about wood construction when I was in Norway, and then looking into from a design perspective how we could kind of keep the existing. What do we keep for the existing when we face like a kind of an old house, for example, and then the dialogue between the old and new, and how to study the technique. So preservation is not just the material, for example, of wood itself, but also the logic of the construction from the existing house. And it doesn't mean that we have to use an axe to chop wood again, you know, like hundreds of years ago, but we can use our modern tools, technologies, to have kind of a contemporary design with the same material, with local based material, and then to use that as a reaction to the existing structure. So I did my kind of thesis on kind of preservation of an old house, an old log house in Norway, and instead of kind of putting it back together, the design approach is more experimental, is to kind of assemble it again, disassemble it almost, and then to combine it with new kind of wood material, but a kind of inherited way of construction logic, and then to turn them into smaller public spaces inside the city. Yeah, I can share that later. But I think, yeah, I think if that answers the question. I was also back in China. I based myself in Dali, although now I teach in Wenzhou between the semesters. I guess Dali is a little bit like Hainan, maybe. It's quite touristy, but at the same time, that brings a lot of people to live there. So in a way, it's got a big kind of youth community there, which is why I like. And then the ways of living is very much more relaxed compared to big cities in China, like Shanghai, Beijing. Usually there's no room for young people to stay because it's very expensive. So Dali is kind of has a strong rural setting, but I think it always have more alternative cultures there, more experimental kind of ground, because things are much cheaper for young people to try. And then there are many resources like from nature. I mean, so for me, it's also kind of my experimental ground as well. So I can test out my design, kind of my own project there, instead of apart from commercial projects. So I almost see it as kind of my design is always like a process instead of a fixed result. Yeah, but I'm happy to share some link or my email later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ling. And last questions for both Ms. Noor and Mr. Pietro. that audience want to know more on the support, how to support the young people needs to participate in creative activities, especially those still in schools. So please.
I think one of the creative ways that I can recommend, such as art and folklore, that I participate in competition that are organized around the world, like monologue and radio drama. The achievement of a student who have participated in this competition are also able to raise the spirit of other students to strive in competition, and they will have a mindset to win that competition. And this will also make them to take part in this online platform.
Well, one of the projects I've been involved with is one in a district called Xingkong in the province of Chiang Rai, and it was about mainly about promoting the community's product there. If I want to be specific, the community's product is a rattan bag. Rattan is a type of plant that in this case it is used to make products, usually kind of furniture, either furniture or bags. And in this case, how I managed, how I engaged young people in this particular activity is have them model with the products and help, and like with photography, and like at first, you know, they weren't used to it, but the thing with people my age is that I think people are the most creative around this age, around my age, and once you see kids or teenagers around my age, they usually don't know what they want to do, but if you can find something in them that they don't even know they're good at, and bring it out of them, they can be really great at it. And that's what happened with the modeling with the products. And as well as a different case in a more rural area called Ban Ba Miang Man Peak, also in Chiang Rai. It was a filming of the school. It's just a filming of general overview of that specific school, and like we had one of the students or few students who came up and helped with the filming, and that I like seeing that. I like seeing, as someone who likes creative stuff like art and music or kind of stuff like that. I like seeing that in people, and I think what I'm trying to do, and I wish more teachers, more educators can do, is bring that out of students, because maybe it's a bit of an abstract concept, but I think it is something really special that you can see when you bring it out of them.
Thank you. Mr. Piatron just shared a very important thing is how to empower the young people during the project, during this process, to accompany the young people, to tell them you are good at something that even the young people don't know. And I think that's so important. So yeah, so thank you all. We are nearly to close this session, and before we closing this session, thank you all the speakers again. I think what we are talking today, the topic, I think it's old topic, but the topic that we always keep thinking, and because of your experience, that you bring experience, your cases and your thoughts into these discussions that really make the discussion, this panel, this roundtable that becomes so interesting, that we mentioned a lot of things such as how to build up the global the global society in this environment, and how to empower young people to use what kind of project or approach to get them to understand the local knowledge from the rural place, such things. So thank you again, and also thank you the audience. Yeah. So so I'm going to close this session, and the next session will be the launch of a call to youth-led actions. So we will take some minutes to rest and go to the next section. Thank you all.
Sorry, we don't have the time for a rest, but thank you all for the speakers and the moderators. We have really learned a lot from this session and the session before. We have gained a lot of valuable experience and heard about your very in-depth reflections on youth actions. And I would like to invite everyone to give a big shout out to them and just do applause for what they have done. Thank you. All right, so next, please allow me to take this chance to introduce to you a very important call that was developed by UNESCO Inroad, but also coordinated by a lot of important partners. I'm going to just share my screen now. And all right, this call is called a call to youth-led actions, promoting sustainable rural development towards ecological civilization, as we can tell from the title of this symposium too. And now I'm very pleased to announce that this call is going to be officially launched. But before that, please let me take this chance to introduce this call to you for a bit of more information. So me and my colleague is going to introduce this call from what it is, how was it drafted, what are the key messages from the call, and we have invited our partners to express their opinions through videos, and then we will introduce what happens next. So the first one is, what is it? As you can find from the keywords of the full title of this call, we actually highlights youth-led actions, sustainable rural development, and ecological civilization. So firstly, why because young people, especially those in rural areas, as we have discussed today, are both the generation most threatened by the sustainability crisis and the key stakeholders to tackle with challenges. And then secondly, why do we promote sustainable development in rural areas? It's from the World Bank's statistics that we can tell the of the world population in rural communities have actually been suffering the most loss and damage in conflict with sustainability crisis. And then thirdly, what do we mean by ecological civilization? Well, it is actually a very broad concept, and it highlights the integrated development of the environment, economy, society, and culture. And it is a foundational concept of a transformative and sustainable future that we are all looking forward to. And then second, how was this drafted? So the initial stage of this document started with a lot of document review in September this year. The main purpose was to clarify the priority of areas in education for sustainable development, and the requirement of use for 2030 and prospects of future education. And then we conducted case studies from October to November, of which the main findings have already been shared in today's first section. And then the first draft was written and revised from 8th to 20th November, followed by the solicitation of feedbacks and signatures for support. And thanks to our coordinators, we have 306 people, 101 anonymously worldwide to sign and contributed their feedbacks. So based on these efforts, the draft was finalized this week, and I am now presenting it to you. So next is the list of the major documents that we have reviewed at the initial stage, which inspired us with their critical terms on youth strategy, priority areas in education for sustainable development, and prospect for future education. Next, I'm going to invite my colleague, Ms. Niu Xingyi, to share with you what are the key messages from this call. Please, Ms. Niu.
Thank you, Ms. Gong. Hello, everyone. My name is Niu Xingyi, and I am a project assistant at UNESCO Annual Aid. It gives me great pleasure to deliver our key messages from the call for youth-led actions. The notion of sustainable development and ecological civilization is rather complex, and thus we have conceptualized these ideas by identifying 4 prioritized areas for youth-led actions. The first aspect is on environmental protection. We're very heavily dependent on our living environment, and thus it's important for us youth to preserve local environments, to respond to climate crisis, to protect biodiversity, and to reduce consumer goods. Culture is the source of identity and resilient development. Therefore, recognize the value of indigenous lifestyles, languages, festivals, and customs, generate innovative approaches for education and awareness raising, as well as a sense of empathy and compassion among everyone so that people understand different cultural phenomena and identities. Sustainability is also about equity and inclusion. Every single person on this planet should have an equal opportunity in sustainable development. It is crucial that we ensure equal access to skill training, information exchange, networking services for all, eradicate systematic barriers for youth participation in decision-making consultations, increase localized support for groups in need, particularly those from disadvantaged and marginalized communities. We should also utilize cutting-edge technology and innovation to empower all actions in sustainable development. We can develop and apply technologies for local communities in an inclusive, effective, and safe manner. We can leverage digital technologies to meet the increasing and diverse needs of the rural population and ensure the responsible and use of technological innovations. Next, taking actions in sustainable development is a process from preparing our knowledge, skills, and values needed to taking the initiative in coping with multidimensional sustainable challenges and to building partnership with multi-stakeholders and stand in solidarity with every young person. We should emphasize here that actions in sustainable development is a self-iterative loop rather than a linear process. As we constantly meet with unpredictable challenges, young people should always be prepared to learn and take new leadership roles in new situations, as well as building extensive partnership. Before taking these actions, how can we get ourselves prepared? We can start with equipping ourselves with the knowledge, skills, and values needed for the transition toward ecological civilization by taking active parts in sustainable related classes, workshops, or other forms of educational activities, either it is formal or informal. We can stay informed about the ongoing sustainable development agenda at local, national, and international levels. We can also recognize the value of indigenous knowledge and local culture heritage in promoting long-term development. And as global citizens, we ought to develop a sense of global community and connect local challenges with common global issues. There are multiple ways in which we can take actions. We can design, facilitate, and launch awareness campaigns on key topics related to different dimensions of sustainable rural development. We can advocate for sustainable lifestyles among our peers, families, immediate communities, and larger groups in our society. It is also important to quest for grassroots leadership positions and make reasonable decisions for sustainable rural development using essential ecological principles and knowledge as our reference. What's more important is that we shall always provide support for disadvantaged and underrepresented groups to voice their needs and gain necessary skills to participate in the promotion of sustainable rural development. As we know from the saying that changes happen when our hands are joined together, and this stresses the importance of building extensive partnership. We should join youth-led organizations or networks for capacity building, knowledge exchange, joint advocacy, and collective actions. We can share our expertise, knowledge, skills, and empirical experience with decision makers, community members, and other relevant stakeholders. This will enable us to contribute to the design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of rural development programs. We can work with academia, governments, nonprofit organizations, and across youth networks and foster extensive collaboration in building ecological civilization where everyone can thrive. We can also acknowledge the diverse rights of every young person and collaboratively explore appropriate approaches vis-a-vis their respective sustainable development needs. And finally, to empower youth with the ability for full participation, we also call on the education sector to make concerted effort through the following approaches. First, from an overall perspective, the education sector should ensure the provision of quality education and a holistic vision of ecological civilization, and recognize that young people are equal partners in the design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of relevant programs. Secondly, for teachers' professional development, the sector should integrate the education for ecological civilization in teacher education and provide pre-service and in-service support for teachers. Third, from the perspective of teaching and learning, we highlight the promotion of pedagogies of cooperation and solidarity and the reconceptualization of curriculum to embrace diverse ways of knowing and understanding. Fourth, an equitable and transformative learning environment is also needed to ensuring the smooth progress of learning. And last but not least, we call on the education sector to eradicate financial and systematic barriers that prevent young people, particularly those from vulnerable and marginalized communities, from accessing and fully participating in the consultations for sustainable rural development. And that is all for messages from the call for youth-led actions. And we look forward to expanding it with more like-minded young people around the globe. Next, I'm going to pass it on to Ms. Gong.
Yep. So thanks for sharing and the introduction. And actually, during the drafting process of this call, we have received tremendous support from various partners, individuals, young people. Now I would like to share with you the video message from them.
On behalf of the Southeast Asian Minister of Education Organization, or SIMO, we are very pleased to support the global and regional cooperation in empowering youth for promoting community and rural development and sustainable environment. Young people are the future of our countries. They have the power to make their voice heard and engage in the development of the country, especially for the rural development. With their hands, they can make a difference by taking control of the future development and protecting our environment and ecosystem. Trust in their capacity and believe in their creativity. We should provide them a platform where they can freely provide suggestions and allow them to engage in the rural development process.
This is Ogun Moshad Ahmed. I am a faculty member here in the Department of Development and Sustainability at the School of Environment, Resources and Development, Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand. If you look at the demography of the developing countries, you see a large number of the population is young. So we need to focus on them and we need to involve them in making our world economically and environmentally sustainable.
My name is Hong. I'm the co-founder of Here China, a nonprofit organization that empowers rural youth. We believe that youth participation is extremely important in rural development because the youth is the future of both China and the world.
Educators should equip them with the core life skills, practical knowledge, and values that can enhance their leadership and social responsibility mindset, which will contribute to the sustainable rural development.
Here in our department in development and sustainability, we teach, we do research, and we work with many agencies, and we mostly focus on the young people because we rear the brighter minds. So we think that people like us and you can all work together for making our world a sustainable world for tomorrow and beyond.
We believe that it is very important not only for students to engage in courses related to sustainable development, but also to build a system, a network to support students where experts, local teachers, townspeople, government, local government, and the rest can support the students together in exploring these very important issues.
It's important to engage young people in rural village sustainable development because the village provides us many things in the daily life of the young people. Village is so far away, but it's important to get them together, get the village and the students to know about what's going on in the village. I think that's important, and that's what we are doing and trying our best to promote more young people to know about the village, to learn from the village, and to get the link between them.
I'm so glad to teach as a member of GFC in a rural school. Even though the youth has not enough teaching experience, we have more energy and broad perspective. We can give the students more opportunity to know the outside world so that they have more choice to change their life. Youth participates in the countryside education will actively influence the local development, thereby contribute to the sustainable rural development.
I believe in the power of education. I feel very happy that I can contribute to promoting the fairness in education. It should not be the only right answer to stay in the city for youth with countless possibilities. I think countryside is not only where we come from, but also where we can return.
As the youth, we are eager to eliminate the annoyances, but we are powerless. We can do little to improve the situation. However, the rural area is a less developed place with less restrictions. Maybe we can make better progress here. Also, as a youth, we can understand and applicate these cutting-edge theories more easily, and practicing in the rural education makes me more realistic. So I strongly recommend everyone to join in the sustainable rural development.
Oops. Okay, again, a big thanks to all the partners and supporters who have signed in our call. And okay, now some people may ask, tell me what to do. I already know that you're calling to our youth-led actions. So what happens next? So here is our plan for the coming year, and I'd like to share with you.
我听不见你讲。
看到您进去了。
是。
All right, we have our closing remarks guest joining, and please allow several seconds for her to get ready. All right, and now I'm going to share with you what we want to do first. So we will collect best practices from the following two aspects. One, education for sustainable rural development programs, and then second, youth-led actions for sustainable rural development. We also welcome creative artworks that reflects in-depth understanding of the concept ecological civilization. And the forms of the works can either be photographs or short videos or paintings, posters, and picture books. And we are also committed to building extensive partnerships with regional and international organizations, universities, local actors, and youth associations to facilitate cross-cultural exchange of policies and practices, advance evidence-informed practice, and mobilize more youth engagement. Moreover, we intend to work with academia, practitioners of rural development, local communities, and youth leaders to formulate effective guidance for transformative actions. So please stay tuned and check for more updates on our website or official accounts. And thank you for your time and support today. We believe in the potential of youth power, and we look forward to any future cooperation. With that said, we are concluding today's youth session, but we also hope that it will also be the starting point of more youth-led actions and at grassroots levels, at leadership positions, and among partnerships from different countries, from different generations, ethnicities, and other identity background. Thank you very much. Anna, I'll give the floor to the closing remarks.
好的，非常感谢感谢参加今天。
Okay, thank you very much for all of you to participate different sessions of today's conference, including all the friends online. And thank you for your passion. You've been staying here until the last moment. So even though the number of people are limited, but still we think that all of us are like the sparks, and we will definitely influence the very larger environment. And until now, we have mainly covered major agendas of the 2 days session. It's about time to say goodbye. So now we are going to enter into the closing ceremony. And today we'd like to give the speaker of the keynote speech yesterday, Ms. Yang Guiping, who is the chief expert of Zigen, who is at the east of US. It is still 4 a.m. for her. Now, please, Ms. Yang. Distinguished guests, I myself is very honored and very happy to participate in today's conference. First, I'd like to congratulate the very creative and active content have been shared on this seminar, and it has been very successful. It is just a beginning. Just as we know, we hope that we can see it will be further developed. And there are several aspects which are very interesting. So first one, from the society and cultural and economic perspectives to discuss the rural sustainable development and what role can education play in promoting rural sustainable development. At the same time, under the international framework and also in line with China's ecological construction and the rural revitalization, what has been done in terms of the rural practices has been shared on the conference. This is also very new information to all of us. And also, I believe that China and ASEAN countries can have this. We can have the grassroots levels communities and the academia can join hands together to discuss about the experiences and the investigations they've done and to learn how the education can promote the sustainable development and then to further realize the sustainable development in rural areas. We all have very high expectations on that. We also stressed that in this field, the importance of the participation of the young people and how we can make sure the young people can accept the opportunities of ESD and to increase the awareness and take actions for them. At the same time, they will be the major force for the future development of the ESD in rural areas. We're looking forward to see more young people in the future in the rural areas. I believe that the action as the call to the youth-led action is also very important. And we hope that these activities and initiatives can have very deep roots. I would like to share with you the following aspects, which will be the starting point of our future work. So first, we have a tape recorded the conference, and we're going to print out all these papers and the speeches so that we will have the videos and tests to share with all of the people to increase the influence. And also this symposium is symposium is just starting, but we hope that in future at least it can be held 1 year or once in every 2 years. It will be a network so that we will zoom in to specific areas and to exchange ideas, especially the world is always changing. We can always keep updated about new situations and new concepts and new practice. We can exchange this and build the network. One target is how to promote the sustainable development in the rural areas through education. So I hope we can have the regular meetings in the future. We also suggest that it's very hard for us to gather here. Even without the COVID, we can have the chance to meet face to face and to build ties with each other. But still, it is very good to have this online. So even though we are very far away from each other, but still we can meet online. And also, I hope that we can unite the academia, the universities, and the civil organizations. Most importantly, the grassroots communities and organizations at the grassroots level who would like to become an important force to work together. And this is very important that we can have the future and continuous exchange. And secondly, we hope that for the young people, we can build platforms for the young people and make sure that there will be more young people to accept the training opportunities about ESD to increase their awareness. And in terms of the activities, they can all be united and gathered and be the major force for the this is the major the dream of all of us. I believe that, of course, great efforts are needed, and for us, Zigen Group, and also for the UNESCO Inroad, we can take the lead together and to gradually finish all these jobs. And I'm also very happy that we can gather together. And the very beginning is a big success already. And we will take time to find the fund and to find the resources and to make it sustainable. It is not general action, but it's a long-term action, which consists from the different and little steps and little progresses. Okay, I myself is glad again that I can have the chance to summarize this information with you. And we have sowed the seed. And we hope that we can see that a younger and more active and sustainable rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yang, for your warm and vibrant speech. After hearing this, I felt a great warmth, and she has summed up our symposium and also raised the expectations for the youth, and some thoughts on the next steps. I totally agree that these should become a regular mechanism. As a platform built, we can make more friends through it. And we believe that facing 2030, we still have 7 or 8 years. How can we introduce more perspectives into the implementation of the 2030 agenda? That's what we need to do. And also, I'm convinced that youth can play a very, very important role in the process. From UNESCO Inronet, therefore, I would like to avail myself to this opportunity to say a few words on behalf of Inronet. Professor Yang has summed up our symposium with a lot of features mentioned, but I would also like to share the following features of the symposium. First, we have a very broad participation of guests with diverse perspectives, and we have reached a consensus, especially after the post-industrialization period. The diversity of local education and the return to the authentic aspects of rural knowledge. We have reached a basic consensus on this. That means that this conference has become very fruitful because consensus is the foundation for next step actions. And also during our youth forum, we also have a consensus-based document that is the call for action, which has received the support from multiple organizations. Going forward, we have to translate the initiative into actions. Without actions, the call for action document will become lifeless. Therefore, we hope that youth can work together with us to make it into a vision shared by all and actions taken by all. Therefore, in addition, I think this symposium has demonstrated a close partnership. As you can see, the organizers consisting of 5 organizations, including the Faculty of Education of BMU, China Zhigen, and Asian Institute of Technology, and UNESCO and organizations. Of course, other universities and research institutes have provided their facilitation and support. We have maintained close contact to ensure the success. That is the foundation of this great symposium. And we hope that this endeavor of ESD can be achieved through close partnership. And that is the only way. And I also think that this is the platform to demonstrate the power of youth. The Agricultural Education Center has organized, Internet has organized many events, but this is the first time for us to build a platform for youth to exchange. We hope that young people can speak freely with their thoughts and ideas and actions and experiences. We want your voice to be heard. And with this online platform, it seemed that there was a limited number of participants participated. However, this event is lively broadcasted. So I believe that your voice can reach more people and more communities. The organizers of this event and the kind of chief commander, Ms. Gong Shiqing of this organizing committee, has made continuous efforts, energy and time for the organizing of this event, which has also demonstrated the strength and the power of youth. With this symposium, we have shared the policy and the practice of China and Southeastern Asian countries in race regard. Professor Yang mentioned that a lot of organizations and people have carried out grassroots exploration, which is of great local and global significance because actions in China will help other countries to find the key to address the challenges that they are facing. This exchange and sharing have boosted the exchange of knowledge and practice. The conclusion of this symposium is not the ending, it is just the beginning of a new course. In the future, we will carry out more research and public policy advocacy, and also the capacity building of people, in particular the youth, because Professor Yang mentioned that we can provide more training and learning opportunities for young people. Meanwhile, we need to build more networks and expand our partnership. And most importantly, as we mentioned, that we must take actions for the marginalized and vulnerable youth. During the process, we always know that going alone, you can go very fast, but marching together, you can ensure a successful long journey. African people and Southeastern Asians always mention that as one of the youth representative mentioned that when we work alone, we can work faster, but when we work together, we can work further. So this is a widely shared wisdom. Therefore, instead of we should not just strengthen China Zhigen and Southeast Asian Ministers Organization education organizations' participation, but also the participation of more individuals. And we just had like a trial for youth exchange platform, but in the future, as a platform, we will offer more for youth exchange, because the 2050 and the future belong to the young people. Last but not least, I would like to thank all parties, and in particular the supporting organizations. And I also would like to thank Professor Yang and her team for your huge support, especially Professor Li Guangdui and Professor Zhang Qiang, who have participated during the whole process of organizing this event. I would like to thank jury and other experts who have shouldered a lot of responsibilities of organizing of this event, and a lot of experts from Southeast Asian and Asian countries, and have recommended a lot of youth representatives. And also I would like to thank the Southeast Asian organizations and the Asian Institute of Technology. I would like to thank the professors from Beijing Normal University for their huge support. And then I would like to thank my colleagues for their energy and time devoted to this event. They have been working around the clock. And as I mentioned, Ms. Gong Shijing is the chief commander of this event. She is the director, and I'm just the actor, just like making a film. And we had a vision which has been discussed in the first half of this year. But in order to translate this vision into action, a lot of efforts were required. I'm really grateful to her leadership and efforts in making this a great success. And also I would like to thank the colleagues and the staff, such as Li Yang and Fan Beibei, who have been managing the live broadcasting and online platform, and they have been working really hard behind the scene. I encourage them to open the camera to say hello. And Chunnan from our office has provided support as well. Therefore, I really appreciating this effective, united, and a professional team for the efforts. And with that, I would like to conclude this symposium, saying that it's a great success. I'm looking forward to future opportunities for us to work together, to collaborate, and march towards the future together. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Yang. Thank you, Professor Yang, for getting up so early for our event. Yes, going forward, we have to make the seed sound into a great success.
没事没事，不辛苦。
小牛辛苦啊，
我这里是清晨5点。
客串一把。
杨老师
interpretation service will stop here. This forum is concluded. Thank you very much.
Yeah.